All right, sweet. Okay, so what we have here is Lightroom. I just have some photos and I'm gonna quickly make some selects just so I have a batch of photos to use for this demo. So I'm just gonna go ahead and select 12 photos here because that's how many you guys are gonna be working with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so say these were the ones that I was gonna use as my selects. So go ahead and flag them and then I'll filter my film strip to just a flag. Oh shoot, hang on. That's done with me. 1 second. I actually need to give them a color. Just color them yellow and then filter to yellow. Okay, so here are my 12 photos. So say these are your 12 shots, you have them selected in your film strip. So you've done all your editing, your adjustments, and everything, and you've picked the shots that you want. All right, once you're here, we all know the process of creating the context sheet and exporting. You guys have done that many times, and you guys have proven to me and shown me that you do know how to get that done. Okay, so the process, the part that changes is in the export process, in the settings. This is where the settings really come into play. So what we're going to do is you're still going to export your settings at 72 DPI or PPI. And I'll show you where that is. If you don't remember, down here under image sizing. So right here, I'm under image sizing. We've been exporting at a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. That keeps your file small. That keeps it able to be uploaded to Canvas. You're still going to do that. But what you're going to do is you're going to separate the files for digital sharing and the files for print. So in this instance, if I made a folder in my FITM folder for this class, and I make a folder, and this is final demo. In this final demo folder, I'm going to make a folder because I do need photos to turn into Canvas still in the digital way, the way we've been doing them all quarter. So I'm going to say whatever makes sense in your head. You could say for Canvas or you could say for digital. So I'm just going to say for Canvas so we know. And then I'm also going to put here that this is 72 PPI. Okay, so I know that those are the ones that I want to use to create a single PDF. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit choose. That's a new folder, and I'm going to name it. So I say final demo, and then remember you always put your first initial, your first name and last name in the file, and then I'm going to put this is for Canvas in the file name and 72 DPI. So there's no question that these files are not the ones for print. I've done that by the folder I put them in, and I've done that by the name I've given the file. So I'm going to keep my settings like we always do, and I'm going to run that export. As that's going, I'm going to go right back in, and I'm going to go to export again. Then I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to go back out to my main folder for final demo, and I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to say, call it for print. And I'm going to give it a tag of 300 PPI. Now that's a little foreshadowing of the resolution that we're going to give the files for print. These files are going to be much larger. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say 300. I'm going to change my file name. I'm also going to change the quality. Now we've been exporting at 70% quality or 80% quality to, again, control file size. But now I want the files to be 100%. So I'm going to actually change my quality to 100%, and I'm going to change my resolution to 300. Okay, now we have that set here. We're also going to uncheck this checkbox. So this checkbox says resize to fit. We're going to uncheck it. All right, to go back through the steps for printing, this is for printing. So I've made my folder in my project folder, in my exports folder. I should have made an exports folder that says for print 300 PPI. I did export my other files at the original settings that we've used all quarter. Once I choose the correct folder, which I didn't, I'm going to choose it. Then I'm going to come to my file naming, and I'm going to specify that these are files specifically for print. So actually, I'm going to change this to for print, and then 300 PPI also. That little tag is doing everything I can to know that these files are the ones that I want to use for print. Then I'm going to come to resize to fit, which has been these settings all quarter. This is the settings it's been all quarter. I'm going to change these settings for the print version. And this is where you kind of have to take your time and follow your steps and do it in a slow manner so you don't trip yourself up. I'm going to uncheck resize to fit, and then I'm going to change my resolution to 300, just like we put in the file name. Okay, and that's the settings. So you're going to run export on this. Oh, quality is going to be 100. It has previously been lower than that because we're trying to control file size. So now we have all our settings, and what we're going to do is hit export. These exports are going to take longer than the previous exports because it's exporting larger files. Okay, so when we go to our folder, now let me share my whole screen so we can see this in action. When we go to our folder, what we're going to see here is I'm going to have two folders, one with my 72, and if I check the file size of this folder, I just go to get info, we notice that the entire folder with all 12 photos is 9 megabytes. If I go to the file size of the folder for print and I do get info, the entire folder size is 167 megabytes, drastically larger. That's evidence of if you use these photos for printing, you'll get a very less quality print than you will for these photos. So, but it's much harder to send files that are 300 PPI. You'll actually reach your upload limit and it'll be slower, you'll be frustrated. So you want to control the file size. But now that we have these shots, right? These are the ones we want to use for printing. How do you get them printed and put on a board that's not the size of the room? You want to print these a proper size. So I'm going to show you one way to do that in Lightroom. So you guys have all used the method of here it is. Creating a contact sheet. But up until now, we've created a contact sheet that kind of looks like this. 1, 2, 3, small grids. We've dumbed the quality down again, so our file size is smaller. You're still going to do this contact sheet for what you turn into Canvas, but you can use the ability of the contact sheet to set your photos up properly for printing and using the best or the most of either a letter size piece of paper, which is 8.5 by 11, or a piece of paper that's a little bit bigger. If you do go to a spot and you use, say, like an 11 by 17 size piece of paper, if say FedEx has that. Anyways, I'm going to use now a paper size, a US letter size, which is 8.5 by 11. So 8.5 is the width, 11 is the height. And what I'm going to do, instead of choosing these grid settings that I've chosen in the past, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to just do a different grid. I'm going to actually print out, let's see here. I'm going to pick a little bit of a different one. What was it? I'm pretty sure they had. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, so now with this one, what I have here is that I can fit all the same size. Let's just do this one. So with this one, what I have is that what this is going to do is going to fit 2 4 by 6 inch photos on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So that means that from an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, I'm going to get 2 shots that I can cut out cleanly and I can put those on my board. Okay, so you need 12 shots. That means you're going to print 6 pages, right? But okay, so now I need to also set some settings up so that this is high quality. I'm actually going to take off the guides. We don't need them. And then I'm also going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of any water any borders. So 1 sec, let me find the settings for the borders. There is a place to get rid of the borders. Sorry about this. Okay, we're gonna try it and see if this works. So forget about what I was trying to find there. We're gonna run with it and see if this works. I think my Lightroom is just not showing me the proper preview right now. But the main thing when you're in this, okay, I have my layout, at least I see where my layout is designated. I see what's going on with it. I have my 12 photos, they're all highlighted. That's also an important thing. Down at the bottom, you wanna highlight, make sure they're all selected. And then the other thing we're gonna do is we are gonna keep the print job going to a JPEG file. However, just like in exporting, we're going to change the resolution to 300 PPI, and then we're going to change our quality to 100%. What that's going to do is going to give us the highest quality page. And we're going to we had draft mode printing selected. We're actually going to uncheck that, and we're going to do some print sharpening. We're going to keep it on low. The media type is glossy because I want you guys to print on photo paper. Print on photo paper. If you print on any other type of paper, it's not going to look great. It's going to actually be overwhelmed with ink. Other paper is not primed to take this much color, this much ink, this much detail. Okay, once you have that, we're going to go print to JPEG file. And 1 second. I'm not sure that's not selecting the photos. Okay, so this method, it does take a little bit of kind of messing with some of the settings, but as you can see, I changed the one I had selected. I selected this one here, which is 2 7x5 center. This is probably not the right size. Now, one of the things you guys are gonna have to figure out is, okay, if you have 12 photos that have to fit on your board, you'll have to reverse engineer it a bit. And you'll have to say, my board is this size total, and I have to fit 12 photos on that board. And then that's how big my photos need to be. And so that's one of the things that you guys are gonna have to do some trial and error with. I'm actually not gonna tell you the exact dimensions. That would be easy if I did, but this is part of the process of learning how to go from digital to physical, is that some of these things you have to figure out, okay? And so just so you know, you have the ability to select your shots here and move them around your page. You also have the ability to turn on rulers so you can see how big your photos are. So you can come in here and go, okay, my photo right now is spanning 7.5 inches wide. That's gonna be too big for my shot. And then you can come in here and you can change and adjust the size of the cell. So say you wanted the cell in this instance to be 6 inches wide by 4 inches tall. You can adjust the size of the cell, move your photo around, and now you're doing that. Now, you can also take away, right now there's a border being printed. So we're gonna take away the border, and so that the photos are just here, And again, I'm going to come in and I'm going to adjust this photo because I know maybe I've done my math and each photo needs to be, 4x6 or 6x4 in this instance. Now, these photos aren't in the right orientation. That's also something that you can do. Either you can print them this way, and then when you cut them out, then how you place them on the board is in the correct orientation. But this is how we go. Now, if I need to go smaller, I can build my grid differently. I can also add another cell by coming over here and adding another 4x6. So you can start to build it out as you need. Now, say I was good with this, and I'm like, okay, I only see 2 photos here, but there's 12, right? Notice it's telling me that this is page 1 of 12. So it's going to, actually, it should tell me that it's page 1 of, I was going to print the same photo. 1 second.
Do we need to have a specific margin in between each photo if they all need to fit on this for you? Or?
You will, or if the margin is a little bit bigger than it needs to be, then you just have to think you're going to cut these photos out. So that's up to you whether you're going to cut these photos out with a white border around them, or you're going to cut the photos out exact, and then however you decide to mount them on your board. So you do want to give space so that you're cutting and not cutting into your photo. That's something that happens a lot, where people will cut into their photo and they'll be like, oh shoot, I cut off part of the photo, or the photo is just not, then the photos are crooked, basically. And you don't want them to be crooked. You don't want the photos to be crooked. The whole idea is that you get this shot as crisp and clean as possible. So in this instance, and I just think something's up with my, it should be not placing on shot. Oh, there we go. Sorry guys, 1 second. I have a new computer, and so I think there's something a little bit wonky with my Lightroom. And there's a setting that's just a bit off. Of course. Okay. Sheesh. The worst demo in the history of demos. 1 second. Let's see if we can get this. I think whoever might have changed the setting on me. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna make some concessions for this. So dimensions. Sure. Okay. All right, for now, we're gonna roll with what this is giving me, and I'm gonna show you one more option before we get off. And basically there's always different ways when you're deciding layout design or prepping things for print to accomplish it. Some people use different programs, but the biggest thing is that you wanna have control of the resolution. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Controlling the resolution becomes your most paramount thing. And you wanna make sure that you have a proper resolution because that's going to give you the best quality. If you have lower resolution, you're going to experience less quality. So, all right, in this instance, what my Lightroom is giving me, it's saying that on this one page, it's going to give me 2 prints of 4x6 photos, but each page is going to be the same photo. For whatever reason, that's not changing for me right now. It should be changing, but it's not. And so I'm going to get 12 shots, 12 pages, 1 page for each shot, photo printed twice. That might be something that you might want to do because then you have a backup shot. And you know, if you mess up one shot, then you have another shot. Say this was perfect, and this is like, okay, this is perfect. It's gonna print 12 because I have 12 photos. And how do you get the 300 PPI print? You're gonna come here, and again, we changed our settings on our JPEG file, print job to JPEG file. We changed it to 300 PPI, and then also what we've done is we've changed the quality to 100%. Once you have that, you're gonna do print to file like we've done before for the context sheet. And I'm gonna just in the same for print 300 PPI, I'm gonna make a new folder. I'm gonna call it print layout. And then I'm gonna name the file. Because I wanna be able to find it, I wanna be able to take it with me to the printer to print. Okay, so then I'm gonna hit save. You're gonna see a progress bar here at the top. Again, they're large photos. It's gonna take a bit longer to do, but once they're done in print layout, you're gonna have these. Now, these are the files that are 300 DPI that are ready for you to print, cut out, and mount. Now, there's another way to do this. And there's, like I said, there's a few ways to do this. Another way to do this is opening up a Photoshop file. You might be more comfortable in Photoshop. You might move faster in Photoshop. And setting your Photoshop file up as a certain canvas size. Now, that canvas size, 1 second. Can you guys see my Photoshop?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So the canvas size is also of note and the resolution. So what I'm gonna do is I know my paper size. So my paper size is gonna be in inches. It's going to be an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper because that's what regular paper is. But I also know that my photos say, I know my photos, I'm gonna shoot them in landscape. So I'm gonna turn my paper the other way just so I can use my photos in the orientation I shot them in. I'm gonna change the resolution of my document that I'm making to 300. That's important. And I'm gonna hit create. So now I have a canvas that is the size of my paper that my paper is gonna be. Now, I've already done my math and again say I want my photos to be 6. I want my photos to be 4x6. So I'm gonna drag in all 12 photos into my Photoshop file. And I'm gonna have to hit enter 12 times. This is just a quick way to create new layers in dragging stuff into Photoshop. So the reason why I'm hitting 12 times, I know there's 12 photos. So now I've hit enter. Now I have all my layers here on this side, okay? What I wanna do is in one fell swoop, I wanna change the size of all of these shots to the size that I need them to be. In this instance, we talked about being 4x6. Okay, so I'm going to select all my layers. I selected the first one and then I held shift and I select the last one. I'm going to come up here to the top and there is a tool that's called the free transform tool. Now, in order to activate the free transform tool, what you want to do is you want to select the first tool here, which is the move tool. And then you want to hit Control or Command T as in transform. What that does is up here at the top, it gives me some information on the size of whatever it is that I've selected, which I've selected 12 layers on the right-hand side, but now in the middle, I've selected those 12 layers. They're all the same size. I know they're all the same size because I brought them in as all the same size. This is another reason why I want you guys to always crop with the original dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my width and height, and I'm actually going to right click on my width and height and change it from percentage to inches. What that does is give me the size of each shot. Right now, each shot is coming in at 8.5 tall because they fill the page and 5.6 wide. So what I'm going to do is I know I need something around 4x6 in order to fit on my piece of paper, out on my board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and I'm going to make sure that my center link is clicked. What this does is it constrains proportions or maintains aspect ratio. And I'm just going to change my width to 4 inches. And I'm going to hit enter. What that did is it changed it down 4x6. I didn't pick that dimension out of anywhere. I knew that it was going to put these, that's a proportional dimension for what the camera shoots. So now I have 4x6 dimensions. Okay, I hit enter again, and that locks in each layer is 4x6. But I know I can't fit all 12 of these photos on this particular piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually only going to select for now 3. I'm going to see how 3 works. Make 3 layers visible. And one by one, I'm going to move my layers into a position on my page and see how many of these I can fit on my piece of paper. I might not be able to fit 3. So I'm going to test it out and see, and I'm using the free transform tool, by the way. So again, the free transform tool is activated by hitting Control or Command T as in transform. So what it's looking like is that it might be kind of tight to fit 3 of these on my sheet, unless I can go like this. Oh, look at that. So I can fit 3. So 3 shots can go on every sheet. So what I'm going to do is I know that I've selected the first 3 layers here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this file. I'm going to save this file as, and I'm going to save it as a PDF, and I'm going to name it Final Demo for Print 1. And I'm going to keep it organized. Again, you know me, I like folders. I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to name it Files for Print, just so I have everything in the same folder. Create, and we put this one in there. It's going to ask you some questions like PDFs do you want it to be high quality? Yes. I'm going to uncheck preserve photoshopping editing capabilities because we don't need that. But the other stuff I'm going to keep, which is high quality, and I'm going to save my PDF. And then I'm going to repeat on the next 3 layers. Same thing. Move it in position, select my next layer, move it in position, and select my next layer. All right, that looks good. I have space to cut, file, save as. I'm going to click this file name because that's the file name I want to repeat. And the only thing I'm going to change is it kept the fact that I saved as a PDF last time. So I'm going to hit save, hit OK. It also kept the fact that I unchecked Photoshop editing capabilities last time. So I'm going to hit save and then repeat for the next 3. I can even rotate these all up. Well, I can move one over here. can select the next two. You can rotate them. So depending on how good you are moving around in Photoshop will depend on how fast you're able to do this. Now I'm doing a lot of quick key selection with my mouse and right clicking. So it makes it a little bit faster for me to do this, but it is still a viable way to get it done fairly quickly. Print 3, Photoshop PDF, save. It remembers my settings from last time. So I hit save, and then I'll do the last 3. Move this one over. Boom, boom. Move these over. Rotate. And place. Now what I've done is I've created a layout similar to what I was trying to do in Lightroom. I use Photoshop faster, so this was a faster method. This is the way I would do it. I would not use Lightroom, but the key thing is that the files that I use to create these layers, that's the important thing. The files I used to create these layers were saved in my for print folder right here. For print. Not the 72. So this is where file naming comes into play because visually they're the same exact photos. And so you want to know which ones to select and which ones not to select. Okay. And then now that we have this here, I would then take the files for print. And these are the ones that I would take to the printer. And I print these pieces of paper on photo paper, and then I would cut them out and I would mount them on the board. So the idea, the general concept is that you want to create a layout of your individual files so that you can print them the size you need them to fit on your board. You have some programs at your disposal. You can do it in Lightroom with that grid method. It takes a little bit of finagling, like you saw what I was doing. Or for me, the easier way is in Photoshop, and I just have more control, more individual control. But the most important thing is the files that you're using and the way you set your initial Photoshop file up. This doesn't work if all you do is open the photo in Photoshop. You need to create a file that is the size of your paper and then drag the photos into that file and create new layers from each individual file. That's how you can control this and manipulate them and then save only visible enough photos at one time so that they're individually visible and you can cut them out. And so you saw I got 3 photos per page. So 12 photos. I had 4 pages that I needed to take to the printer to print. Okay, so there is some trial and error in this. There is some discovery, but I want you guys to experience what it's like to go from digital to physical. And it is a process. It is a trial and error. The other thing I'll note is that I suggest doing a test print of some sort, because sometimes the printer takes your darks and makes them darker, or it takes your lights and makes them lighter. And then your photo doesn't really look as good as it did on your computer screen. So I suggest doing a test print. I suggest not waiting to the day of or the day before to print these. So that you get the best out of your print. I mean, you're gonna do this assignment and you're gonna print your shots. So take some time to like really go, okay, you're putting a lot of effort into these shots. These are the shots that you're going to be really presenting to speak who you are. And so you also want the prints to represent that. You want to treat this as if you're going to hang this board in your room afterwards. So also with mounting on the board, you guys have mounted stuff before. This is not a first rodeo, it shouldn't be. And if you haven't, then I would definitely look up some mounting techniques for, potentially using some foam core under your photos or creating a border that's clean. That's going to be all part of your grade. And so you want to make sure that you pay attention to those details and present this in as professional of a manner as possible. All right. I know there might be some questions on the general idea, of the specifics, but I am going to put this recording up so you have the specifics. But are there any questions on just the concept of what you need to go from digital to physical. Any questions on that? Okay, cool. Now I am scrolling through some of these test shots that we have here that you guys have turned in for the final. Just seeing if there's any notes that I could give just in general. Yeah, let me go through some of these test shots real quick and just fire off some quick feedback. All right. So quickly, I haven't read the designer statement, and I will give you guys some feedback on the designer statement in the notes in Canvas. So that you'll have that as you're finishing up your designer statement. But one thing I wanted to point out, let me see if I can make this screen a little bit. As far as creating a new picture, just going through these 3 shots and aesthetic and framing and everything with that, I think you've done a good job. Definitely looking forward to reading the designer statement. I think this makes a bold statement visually. So as far as going in the right direction, I think these shots are going in the right direction. The other thing I want to point out to you guys is think of your shots individually, but also think of how they're going to play when they're on the board together as a whole, because that's when they really make up the idea of essay, of putting it out there that, okay, this is me. All right, so let's go through these shots. So with these shots, what I would say is watch almost, it's more so the technical side of taking the photo. You want to watch grain and noise when you shoot things in the dark settings, because you don't want the grain and noise to destroy the quality of the shot rather than be an aesthetic. So just a note, just pay attention to that. And if it is that you shot it, you had to shoot at a high ISO, then that's probably more going to degrade the quality of your shot rather than come across as an aesthetic. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
cool. Yeah, definitely. And then again, the idea is how does this look as a whole on the board? Just like kind of really, okay, how do I feel with it as a whole? What is it speaking, you know? And
It's gonna be like duality, I guess you could. So these are like the more, you know, not happy side of it, but I guess it's just gonna be more of like the duality of human experience or conscious thought, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
like
definitely. Just remember too that this is about you as a designer, and part of it as you as a designer is you want it to feel like something that you made. Now, obviously, I haven't seen anything. I see your stuff that you're making from my studio class, but imagine if these photos were a representation of like your portfolio, right? And so just keep that in mind when you're deciding to use the photos to illustrate the concept. You also want the photos to actually illustrate who you are as a designer. Just keep that in mind when you're picking color palette or you're picking, you know, just different hues and things like that. Cool. All right, let's keep going. And like I said, guys, I'll give you notes on your write-up in the notes section. So you'll have that this weekend to look through. Okay, so I think these look good. I think we also getting a color palette coming through. I think you're creating a new picture. Watch just ancillary things that maybe don't need to be in the shot when you guys are picking stuff to shoot. But I think also note of when you're shooting inside, just watch if there is grain, or watch how high your ISO gets, and make sure that I don't know what just happened. Why did it switch? Okay, for some reason I wanted to refresh. Yeah, but I think definitely creating exposure is done well. So like, you know, we're seeing texture and stuff like that. I do want you guys to note that, again, it's like the things we focus on in this class are the basic stuff. They are the foundational stuff. And one of the foundational things is control over exposure. And we want to make sure that we control exposure well. So yeah, let me move on to the next one. Let's see. Of course, my internet is moving kind of slow. Also, just a note, watch those file sizes too when you're turning into Canvas. Make sure you're turning in the 72 DPI ones. We'll give this another second. Okay, cool. All right, so for these 3 test shots, the one thing I'll say is get closer for this particular assignment. Show us less so that we can identify. Show us less so we can identify more, so that we can be focused on texture, shape, and then associate those things to what you write about your designer statement.
Thank you.
Yeah. Exposure's done well in all these shots. I think you did that well, you hit that well, but I think it's just show us less to tell us more. And again, for the note of being, you know, getting the best out of your photo and being highest quality, getting closer to your subject versus relying on cropping in Lightroom is always going to be the best bet. All right, so yeah, I think these are working out. I think white balance again. Just watch the white balance. Make sure it matches what the colors are you want to come across. But I think these are going in a good direction. All right, let's see. There's okay, Haley, for yours, I would say a similar note of show us less and tell us more. Give us less to digest in each photo, in each shot, that makes it more specific for us to identify the elements of design and the principles of design, and then associate that to your statement. So give us things that are maybe less identifiable, where it's more abstract, to then be more specific to how you want them to be associated to what you're writing.
Okay, like textures and stuff.
Yes. And then think more what the direction we were going with the juxtaposition assignment. Okay. And then I think we're going in the right direction. I would say even show the same note. Show us a little bit less. We want it to be less identifiable as objects, and more, all these are shapes and colors and line and texture that tell us who you are as a designer and relate to what you're writing. Okay. And then Okay, one thing I'll say is shoot all your shots in the same orientation. Pick one and run with that for your board. And the other thing I'll say is the amount you're showing in this shot here, the second shot, try to run with that amount.
Okay.
Yeah. But pick an orientation and use the same dimension size. So lock those proportions and pick one orientation and run with it. And then the amount you're showing in the second shot, that's a good amount.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So like I said, guys, I'll give you feedback on the written part in the notes in Canvas. So you have that to use for your final write-up. I'll also run this export. I am working with a little bit less speedy internet where I am right now, but I'll get this out and up on YouTube and out to you guys as fast as possible. So you have some of the demo for how to like get things ready for print. Other than that, I did put some grades into Canvas. I got some messages. If there is any discrepancies, message me. Communication is the best key, and then we'll take care of it. I just need to get those in so you have those and you see where you're at. And then, yeah, I'll make the final submission live. There'll be a rubric on there so you can see what things are going to be graded. And then next week, we will present our finals. Next week, we will have the option to come in person and present your board in person, or if you can't come in, then we still keep that option on Zoom. So any questions? Okay, cool. Also, after next week, you guys have the responsibility, if you did borrow a camera from the department, to return the camera. That's on you guys to communicate and get that back. You know, and I would just do it before Ann or Kayla have to track you down for the camera if you did use a camera from the department. Cool. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys. Also, thank you for a good quarter. Hopefully you guys have learned a lot and looking forward to seeing how these final projects turn out.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk soon.